Hi parents, this is Mrs. Keene. I am the school counselor in the elementary, and I just love working with your kids all the time, and I'm really excited to be a part of this speaking series. And today I have been asked to talk a little bit about how to talk to our kids about body changes, particularly going through puberty and kind of growing up. So I'm just going to sort of give 5 steps to talking with your kids about these body changes, and there is a document that kind of goes along with it that you can follow along with as well. I think the thing about talking to our kids about body changes and other important topics is that if we don't talk to our kids about these things, they will hear it from other people, their friends, their peers, social media, even in our churches and their neighborhoods. And so if they don't hear it from us, they will hear it from others. And it might be in more disturbing ways, or at best they will learn information that's maybe not quite right, but they'll get the information. At worst, however, if we don't talk to our kids about these things, they might think that we're uncomfortable talking about difficult topics like this, and they won't come to us, especially as they get older. I think that if we show that we feel uncomfortable talking about these things, or we just don't talk to our kids about these things, they will become convinced that they understand the world better than us, or their peers understand the world better than us, and we'll lose our credibility as parents with them. So I think it's super important to talk about these important topics. And I also think it's really important to talk about them in a developmentally appropriate way, which is sometimes hard to do, but hopefully we're going to cover a little bit of that today. So 5 steps to talking to our kids about body changes. Step 1, I would say ask what your kids have already heard, or maybe what they've already noticed. So they may have already noticed some changes in their own body, or their own heart and their own mind, or in the bodies of others. So for example, ask what changes they've seen in themselves or in their peers. Ask if they know why these changes are occurring. You might get some interesting answers. If you have kids that maybe are a little uncomfortable talking about this, or are a little resistant to those type of questions, sometimes it can help to ask what their friends are saying. Like, well, why do you think your friends might think that this is happening? Or what do your friends say about this? And the changes that they're noticing. Step 2 would be to ask how these changes make them feel. So there's a few things to remember when we ask our kids how they feel about something. First of all, we want to just listen. And that can be tough for us as parents, but just close our mouths and sit quietly and listen to what our kids say. Trying not to correct their feelings, even if their feelings might be upsetting to us. At first, just trying to listen to how they're feeling, without interrupting, without correcting, without invalidating, just listening. And then second, affirm feelings that might be logical or make sense. For example, if they say they feel scared or awkward or uncomfortable, say that makes sense. You've never gone through this before. It makes sense to be uncomfortable or scared or nervous. And then, affirming feelings that are valid, but maybe correcting feelings that are not founded in truth. If they're feeling scared about that they're just gonna end up pregnant or something like that, we can correct some beliefs that they have that are not founded in truth, and maybe ease some of those fears that they may be having. Definitely we want to encourage our kids to continue telling us how they're feeling. And same thing as before, if we have a kid who is maybe not sharing their feelings, just say, well, how do you think your friends might be feeling? And then maybe that will be a good conversation starter. So after we've asked what our kids are noticing, after we've asked how these things are making them feel, then we can ask what questions they have. Kids are interpreters. They are interpreting information that is coming at them, and we might not know what they're thinking until we ask them. So We don't know how they're interpreting these changes that they're experiencing in their own hearts and minds and bodies, or in the bodies of other people, until we ask them. So we definitely, after we ask, what questions they have, so that will be step 3, ask what questions they have. So ask what they've noticed, ask how these things make them feel, and then step 3, ask what questions they have. We can correct some of their misunderstandings. If they're believing things about body changes that really are not accurate or are not going to happen, we can correct some of those things. And then, when they're asking their questions, we want to focus on how these changes are going to affect their life. Okay, so then step 4, how do we structure the talk? So it's great to see where our kids are at, see what questions they have and what they're feeling, but then there is a portion of a conversation that we do want to give some information to the kids. So I would start by giving some perspective, talking about how this is all part of God's plan for your life, that He made you in your mother's womb. He made you for a purpose, and it is His purpose, hopefully, for you to continue to grow and to become an adult. And what else is the process of puberty besides changing from a child to an adult? And so just giving some perspective to the big plan of God for your kids' life and the life of all of humanity. Secondly, we can focus on the positive. For example, just wording things in a positive way instead of a negative way. So saying, this is part of you gaining responsibility and independence. Saying, this is a step towards having your own family someday. Instead of saying things like, it's all just part of growing up, or we all have to go through this. Wording things in a positive way, I think, can really help our kids' perspectives. Something you can do too when you're structuring the talk with your kids is to maybe give them up front some ideas of what this talk is not about. For example, if you're not going to discuss how babies are made, you could just say that up front if that's not what this talk is about. And sometimes your child will just breathe a sigh of relief from the very beginning. You can also clarify that this is not a talk because your child has done something wrong or they're in trouble, because sometimes when we have serious conversations with our kids, they may interpret it in that way. So just kind of clarifying what this talk is not. I would also suggest using a resource during your talk. I've included on that handout a bunch of different resources that you can look at. One of them in particular has a video that you can actually watch with your child, and that is the video that we actually watch in 4th grade. We do a lesson for all the kids on body changes, and I should say the girls watch a video, the boys right now don't, but there are a lot of resources on the one link that I included on there that you could watch together or read together with your child and then discuss it. So some of that might be a little more comfortable for you guys to watch or read something together and then maybe discuss your thoughts about it afterwards. Okay, so we've gone through steps 1 through 4. So step 5 is kind of now what, okay? So you've found out where your kids are starting at, you've answered their questions, you've talked about their feelings, you've given them some information about what body changes are, what puberty is, all of that sort of information that they might need. So now what? Well, kids are naturally self-centered. That's just part of where they're at developmentally. So they're naturally going to think in their minds, okay, how is this going to affect me? How is this going to change my life? So giving some specific examples of what we're gonna do because of these changes are really helpful. So for example, it might change the type of clothing that your child is gonna wear. It increases the importance of, hygiene. So showering every day, changing our clothes every day. It might change the kind of underclothing that your kids are wearing. This is a great time to talk about using deodorant or other hygiene items like that. With girls, talking about their menstrual cycle and having a plan for what to do if that were to start maybe when she was not at home, and being prepared for that sort of thing. Another important thing to talk about is how this can affect their interactions with others. So, for example, talking to our kids about the importance of never commenting on other people's body changes. And I think this can happen especially sometimes between genders, maybe girls teasing boys when their voice makes funny noises, or maybe boys teasing girls for growing hair on their legs, that sort of thing. So just instilling in our kids the importance of never commenting on other people's bodies, even if we think we're saying a positive thing, maybe talking about how tall someone is getting or how thin they're getting or something like that, that we might see as positive, that person could really interpret it in a different way. So the importance of not commenting on other people's bodies, especially body changes, I think is a great time to have that conversation with your kids. And then trying not to compare ourselves to others. The importance of talking about how everybody's body changes at different times and different rates. When I talk to the fourth graders about this every year, which we always do in the spring in fourth grade, I always tell the story about how until just a few years ago, I had a pair of shoes from fifth grade that still fit me because I was this tall in fifth grade. So as a fifth grader, I was really tall. As an adult, I'm really rather short. So the fact that I was tall in fifth grade really didn't indicate my height as an adult. And so I think just talking to our kids about the rate their body changes or when it's changing or how it changes really does not indicate what they're going to look like as adults. I think at this point too, talking to our kids about what do they do if they are unsure about something or they think of a question later. Of course, always encouraging them that they can come and talk to us at any time is really important. And giving them other people to talk to too. And, maybe an older sibling or an aunt or uncle or a trusted adult that they have at church or in the family. And then lastly, having follow-up conversations with our kids is so important. A day or two later saying, hey, remember that talk we had the other day? Have you had any more thoughts about that? How are you feeling about those things that we talked about? Kids are going to be processing these things ongoing. So continuing to check in with them is really important. Even as it comes up naturally, maybe when you're at the store and you walk past the hygiene aisle, bringing it up again, as it naturally comes, I think is really helpful. And we'll show our kids what we said at the beginning, that we are not afraid to talk about these things with them. We know about these things. We are a safe place for them to come and talk about them. And I think that goes a long way in all aspects of our relationships with our kids. If you guys have any questions about any of the resources, or I have a lot of other books that are really helpful too on this topic, so please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be praying for you as you are addressing these hard, sensitive topics with your kids, and I'm always here to help if you ever have any questions. Thanks so much.